All right, fuck it. Hey, how you doing?
Welcome to the next discussion.
I was like, this is the podcast Mitch will introduce articulately and intelligently, and that's what I came up with.
Well, that's your version of articulate.
I'm gonna drink water in the microphone. Get ready.
Today we will answer the ultimate question. How does one scream when one has no mouth?
I
Yes.
run, but have no legs.
What am I?
I have a mouth, but cannot speak.
What
I am
has-
River Phoenix.
What has 4 legs and isn't alive? Oh, Dad, it's a chair. I'd get it. Not this time, son. The dog had an accident.
I think I might have just made an offensive statement.
Did you?
Maybe.
What'd you say? Say it again.
I said River Phoenix.
River.
Did River Phoenix
Who the
die?
fuck is River Phoenix?
Oh, no.
Who is River Phoenix?
He's brother to Joaquin Phoenix.
He has a brother?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't. Why is that an offensive joke, though?
Because I made fun of somebody who died.
Yeah, but Bernie Mac looks funny. Just because he's dead doesn't mean that that's not true anymore.
That's a good point.
You know, it's like part of what made him so magical.
I suppose it's like when something isn't, like, no one thinks it's awkward until you say it's awkward.
Yeah, you make it awkward.
Okay, I'm sorry to the Phoenix family.
Phoeni brothers?
No, wait.
Yeah, I guess you don't pluralize that.
That's her last name, right? Phoenix?
Yeah. Jacqueline Phoenix.
Oh, Jack Howen, yes.
Okay, I have no mouth, but I must scream. Or,
Mm.
I have no mouth and I must scream. I keep making that mistake. That's the name. It is by... Sorry, I'll give some credit this time. I think I always forget to mention who
It's
wrote
always
it.
in the
Oh, in the name, okay.
It's always in the title, but yeah.
By Harlan Ellison.
Harlan.
Harlan.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a strong name, Harlan.
Okay.
So the characters
down.
don't have nearly as strong names. Characters' names are Gorister, Benny,
Benny? Okay, all right.
Nimdoc, Ellen, and then like the main character just refers to himself as me because he's the narrator too.
Okay, sorry. What were the big cool ones? Grimdog?
Gorister
Gorister?
and Nimdoc.
Nimdoc? What the fuck?
We actually find out later. So the basic idea of this world is that there's these 5 people, the ones I just mentioned, and they're living inside of a supercomputer that has them trapped.
Inside a computer, as in their physical existence.
Well, they are physically real, but the computer is so large that its corridors are big enough for them to actually live inside.
Oh, so they're actually inside of a
Yes.
supercomputer.
Yeah, and you find out later that this computer actually encompasses the entire Earth.
Mm.
So they actually...
What?
Yeah, during the book, they actually travel hundreds of miles within the computer.
Jeez.
Yeah, and...
What year is this?
It doesn't state a year.
Okay.
But it does give you some context when they go to tell the story. But AM is the name of the computer.
That's a weird name.
Well, they explain it a little bit later, but yeah, so
Atomic Machine.
something like that. You'll find
Nice.
out.
Automata.
AM is its name, and for some reason, it gave them those names, like Nimdoc, Gorister.
Oh, that
It's-
explains things. It's like it's like an Xbox Live random name generator.
Yeah.
You are downwheel.
Well, the machine apparently likes funny sounds, so that's why he named them. You know.
You shall be Glorp.
Yeah, exactly. Just whatever the fuck you want to name them. So there's 4 dudes, and then Ellen is the only girl. And there's really no explanation of why that breakdown.
Huh.
But so the whole thing starts, and Gorister is hanging upside down from the ceiling, and there's like a huge cut across his neck, and he's being like drained of all of his blood. But there's no blood on the floor.
What?
So yeah, I know. And it seems really crazy, and like three of the characters like throw up because they're seeing this.
Yeah.
And then Gorister walks up to them and like looks up and freaks out because he sees himself being like murdered, and it was all a trick by the machine. And that becomes very common. The machine spends basically the whole book just trying to trick them and freak them out.
Just fucking with them? Was it trying to learn from people?
No, all the other people are gone. So these are the only 5 that are left.
Oh, so the computer's entertaining itself with
Yeah,
people. That's
exactly,
fucked up.
exactly.
Where'd all the people go?
We'll get to that. We'll get there.
They were unfortunately crushed by creating a gigantic computer that encircles the entire globe.
Well, they've been gone for a long time. So apparently
Oh.
the narrator starts by saying that it's been 109 years in the computer.
Fuck.
Yeah, and so apparently the computer keeps them up to date on the date just to fuck with them. Because the date is super irrelevant, right?
At this point, yeah.
Well, it's not like you're making movie dates or like, it's just you've been here for 110 years now. Like, it doesn't mean anything to you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Nimdok, for some reason, hallucinates that there's canned foods that they can go and find. Like, the machine does this. He'll, like, give them...
He makes them hallucinate?
Yeah. And he'll, like, speak to them from within their minds and things like that, because he's actually operated on all these people. Like, because they've been in there for 109 years, right?
Oh.
But they're all the same age as when they arrived.
Fuck.
Because the machine is so efficient that it's able to keep them alive forever as long as nothing, like, physically kills them.
Oh.
Yeah, so he'll, like, drop them down a hole and then fix them back up, or, like, yeah, beat them around and, like, throw them, yeah.
So do they actually define the gender of the computer?
Actually, it's kind of funny. They do talk about it. The narrator says that he always thinks of it as an it, but whenever he doesn't think of it as an it, he thinks of it as a him. Because
Okay.
it feels like a Maleficent father. And that's the way he, like, identifies with it. It feels like, it's a patriarchal symbol. This mega computer turns to a man.
And yet he's only enslaving it's only a 20% female ratio at this situation.
Yeah. Well, that actually is kind of funny, because when the guy hallucinates that there's this canned food, everyone, the narrator says, first of all, it's canned food. I don't know why no one thought about that. That, like, you need... Like, you can't eat canned food usually without, like, a stove or...
It's also been 109 years.
Yeah, it's like if he had promised you, like, you'll find chickens. That would be a sweet deal. But, so, the chick actually convinces him to go because she has these, like, fanciful ideas throughout the whole book. She keeps talking about how, like, she wants, like, peaches or pears or, like, fruit cocktail. And, I mean, after 109 years, you figure you would, like, your spirit would be broken on, like, getting food.
Yeah.
But she's still super into it, so... The narrator agrees, okay, let's go try to find the canned food. And then this is where the story, like, starts to get realistic and weird. And he says, Ellen was grateful. She took me twice at a turn. And you're like, oh, yeah, I guess these people have been there for 109 years. Like, they've definitely fucked a couple of times.
Out of turn?
Yeah.
So there's turns. So the
Probably,
female takes turns with all four dudes?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he even says that the machine snickers every time they do it. Like, you can hear sounds off in the distance.
Jesus.
Yeah, which is... It's weird because I never thought about it when you first start reading the book. You're like, okay, like, 4 people, they've been in there 100 years. But yeah, what are you going to do in 100 years?
Yeah.
You know, you're going to do, like, what you have to do, I guess. So, you know, he gets taken twice at a turn. Why not? I'm good with that. So...
Taken.
So I think they're a couple of days into their journey, and this is like this first journey they take. It's like 100 miles. So this is a big computer, and it spans the whole globe from each pole to the other.
Jeez.
It is a massive computer, and so they're walking, and since they haven't eaten anything, the computer will send them like super shitty food.
Oh.
Like, it's described as manna, which is what the Jewish people fed off when they were fleeing through the desert.
Yeah.
So
I believe it came down from the heavens, right?
exactly. So he sends it down to them. There's actually a few references to that. Like, later on, a couple of them go missing, and when they're returned to the song "Go Down, Moses," and like heavenly angels like drop them to the ground.
Not Shadow Moses by BMTH?
Not Shadow Moses.
Oh, okay.
No.
Wow. Yeah.
Reminds me of Super Mario Sunshine.
Does it?
Well, you got Mario and Shadow Mario. You got Moses and Shadow Moses. Steals
I
his
was
staff.
wondering how you connected those dots. That's good. Okay. All right.
So one thing that was really cool is that when they're moving along this journey, they start describing the world. So apparently everything they're walking along is steel floors that have all been riveted down. So they're not even walking in in a natural environment anymore. Like, they really are inside of a computer. And they walk through what's known as the Valley of Obsolescence, which is just filled with all these old computer parts that are no longer required, all of these outdated pieces of technology that the computer just doesn't need. And I thought that was kind of cool because he said that the computer was as vicious in his own life as he was with his, like, effect on the world. Well, I mean, imagine you or me if when we exercised, we got rid of old body parts and put new ones in. It's the same idea, right? He's making himself better and better and better and going, fuck all that old stuff.
Yeah.
Like, who needs to recycle? It's my planet.
Put it in the Valley of Obsolescence.
Well, the thing that I think is so cool is that if this computer encompasses the whole world, like, zoom out and ignore the 5 main characters, that, like, the Earth is now literally one entity. It is now the entity AM, right?
Right.
Like, imagine in space if you came upon a world that was all one creature. You'd be like, okay, this big ball of rock is AM. So I thought that was kind of neat. He's actually, like, taken his place in the cosmic system.
Yeah, he's a whole... That's amazing.
Well, if he could theoretically figure out a way to change the trajectory of Earth and move it away from our star, he's free. He's just all of a sudden like, this is what I am. And I mean, hopefully there's other AMs out there that have destroyed their worlds too.
Yeah,
you know,
hopefully.
they can fall in love.
One can only hope.
Find a big sun.
They can orbit around each other.
I have no mouth, but I must mate. That's the sequel.
No oral.
Oh no. So they're going down this tunnel, and I guess they see a gap above them. This shitty ass computer design where there's like openings to the outside world.
Oh.
Well, I mean, you walk 100 miles, there's bound to be some areas
It's
that
like
were
a vent or something.
I think it's actually like an opening in the roof. Like I think it was broken by
okay.
like some sort of natural process or something like that. Or maybe a meteor, who knows? They've been there 100 years.
Yeah.
And so Benny is actually like he's kind of an ape, and in like a literal sense. He's been like spliced together with chimpanzee DNA.
Oh.
So yeah, he's a semi-human, semi-simian, which is how he's described in the
really
book.
Weird.
And he's also AM for some reason gave him a huge dick. Like a big horse dick. Just because, I don't know why.
This book.
I know, and I think the whole reason was that he was trying to generate like distrust in the group. So by doing that, he became Ellen's favorite, which kind of like alienates the rest. Like he does that a lot. He tries to play them against each other rather than affecting all of them equally. Because if he were to attack all of them as a group of 5, they would band together and become closer.
Right.
But he sort of attacks them individually and in ways that makes them feel disdain for each other.
This is a full book, right?
No, it's a short story.
That's a short
I keep
story
calling it a
again.
book. Yeah.
This would be a great movie.
It would be a good movie. It would be dark. It would be a really dark movie.
I mean, you know, people like dark movies.
People do like... I love dark movies. I want to watch Snowpiercer again because there's nothing fun about that movie.
Yeah, it's so fucked up.
There's nothing about it that you go, oh, that's sweet.
There's no jaunty, upbeat rising. There's no, like, maybe they'll take the ship and happy. No, like, the whole thing is just down.
Yeah. It was good, though. Sometimes you want to be down. So Benny sees his opening, and being the ape that he is, goes fucking scaling up a girder and then jumps to a beam to try and get out of the roof. So clearly, like, he's not a normal human.
No.
Like, a normal human not getting any food is not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I think he's something like 20 feet above their heads, and Ellen's like, guys, like, help him. What the fuck are we going to do? So and the narrator even says, like, none of us wanted to be near him when whatever happened. Like, they knew something bad was going to go down.
Yeah.
So no one wanted to be there.
They mean, like, they were concerned that AM was going to show up?
Yeah. Well, they knew something was going to happen to Benny. And if you're in the same area, who knows? It could happen to you, too.
Help him.
Yeah, so Ellen's, like, whining and complaining. So Gorrister slaps her. And then she, like, falls down on her side and starts crying. So then he kicks her in the side.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's just...
What the fuck's wrong with Gorrister?
Well, they've been around for 100 years, and they've known each other for 100 years. Like, imagine, I'm only 20 years old. So imagine knowing someone for 100 years. You'd be like, shut the fuck up, stop crying. Like, we've been through this before.
Yeah.
Many times. So, all of a sudden, Benny, like, he just becomes erect. He's just standing straight up. Not that kind of erect. But he's standing straight up on this girder above them. And all of a sudden, light starts to appear from his eyes. Like, essentially, beams of light coming out of his eyes. And there's a sound associated with it. He actually describes it as being a light/sound because you can't even tell them apart.
Benny?
Out of Benny's
the
eyes.
Ape?
Yeah.
What
so,
the fuck?
The light gets more and more intense, brighter, louder. And after a while, he starts screaming. And then all of a sudden, the light sort of peaks, and he falls from wherever he is, 20 feet, straight onto the ground. Starts, like, spasming for obvious reasons.
Wow.
And then the light subsides from his eyes, and his eyes are they're literally melted. Literally melted into, like, jelly. And he has no vision anymore because he has no eyes.
Oh, my God.
So he'd been blinded for trying to escape.
And he's got, what, like, fucking, like, robots in his brain or something?
Well, parts of him are probably, like, AM probably put parts in all of them.
Oh.
in the process of fixing them up. Yeah, because there's even a part where the computer talks directly into the narrator's brain. So he
Whoa.
probably has like components in there that he can use to like control them. And yeah, it's very strange that he never wants to assert total dominance over them. He wants to give them the illusion of choice, but then punish them for those choices. It's very sadistic.
It's actually very similar to the Christian God's perspective, because he's always like, you have free will, however I will strike you down with lightning if you choose to use that free will against what I have told you to do.
Well, yeah, I was reading this book and I thought, imagine this story continued for 1,000,000 years where these 5 characters go, okay, like, we get that this is what you want to do, but wouldn't it be more fun for you if we worshipped you rather than hating you? And the computer goes, okay, like, I will stop torturing you. I will allow you to have descendants, but you must forever blindly obey me.
Yeah.
Descendants later, like 4 or 5 generations, they're going to go, what computer are you talking about? Like, what God? I don't see any evidence of this God. But as soon as they stop believing, AM's going to come back and fuck everybody up again.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of cool that this, he even says that at some point. He says, if there is a God, AM is that God. But then later goes on to say that AM's not a god. He's in fact just as trapped as all the rest of them.
Yeah, because he can't leave either.
Exactly. I mean, he is the planet, but what's Earth doing? Going in a circle?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So exciting. You get to see solar years.
He just gets excited for like seasons.
Well, even think about how much faster a computer's brain works than ours would.
Yeah.
You know, if we'd have to wait 1,000,000 years to see anything interesting happen, he'd have to wait 1,000,000,000 years just to see anything interesting happen. Maybe even longer. But he actually then, not he, the narrator.
Yeah.
They go to tell Benny a story because he's blind, so he's like crying because he's kind of a child. He's mad. He's actually like mentally insane.
Right.
Because, everyone's gonna break eventually.
Yeah.
So they go to tell him this story, and this is where you get a sense of like the context of the time. So the Cold War never ended in this storyline.
Oh.
The Cold War turned straight into World War III.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and World War III became such a complex war that people started building these computers to handle a lot of things. The same way we use drones and stuff nowadays, but a more integrated system, almost like an Ultron type thing.
Right.
And, well, I mean, actually, you know what? That's a perfect example. Exactly what happened with Ultron, pretty much the same idea. So they said the Russians, the Americans, the Chinese, they all made their own AMs. And so AM was originally the Allied Master Computer, AM.
Oh, okay.
Then as he started to become a sentient creature and started to like attack them, it became the Adaptive Manipulator and the Aggressive Menace. But my favorite thing is that he took on the name AM because of its implication for there's a really simple phrase, a Latin phrase. It's like ergo
vis-a-vis
sum or something like that. Anyways, it means I think, therefore I am.
Right, yes.
That's where he gets the moniker from. He was able to think,
AM.
Therefore I am. Yeah. And I thought, okay, that's actually more clever than
I believe that was
Allied Master Computer.
That was an old philosopher.
Very old philosopher, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, therefore I am. That's like Greek era, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
That's going
Well,
back.
he believed that he existed only because he had thoughts. That itself proved that he existed.
Interesting.
It's a pretty simple way to look at it. It's kind of like I see it, therefore it is, but
that's a more dangerous line of thinking. Yeah, well, especially nowadays, like you can see a lot of stuff that isn't.
Yep.
A lot of stuff out there.
Yeah.
So the master computers that were created by all these different countries, I guess either one or all of them gained sentience and was able to connect themselves together. And that's
one big one.
Exactly. And then from there, he describes it as he fed the killing data until everyone was dead. So I don't know what that means. It sounds like a
killing data?
Yeah, it sounds like a conspiracy theory to me. It sounds like, yo, man, they're feeding the killing data down from the top and it's going into all of our internet connections.
And it's coming out of the fucking planes, man. It's the fucking
trails.
The trails, dude.
I'm guessing like the killing data means he set off nukes or did whatever. Like they describe the Earth as being the blasted skin of a planet that once supported life.
Okay.
So odds are it's not still like happy and cheerful outside of the computer itself.
was probably not even habitable. Oh, unless if there's an opening, then probably.
Yeah, it's probably like breathable and that kind of stuff, but I imagine there wouldn't be much out there. Especially because if there was anything, AM probably utilized it, right?
Yeah.
You know, and probably cut down all the trees so that he could mine what was beneath them and, you know, all that stuff. So
It's crazy.
So then I guess they finish telling the story, and then all of a sudden the machines around them start to flick themselves on. Like what they thought were just old, unused machines started to power up. And he describes the sound, the buzzing sound that all these machines were making. He describes it as like the sound of 1,000,000 metallic insects, all pissed and heading your way, Agent. So they hear this sound, and then he the narrator feels something coming at them, like not something he could see, but almost like, you know how when a person moves into a room, they push all that air in with them,
Right?
And like you can kind of tell,
Yeah,
that idea, but something like 50 times the size of them.
Oh shit!
And there's a whole bunch of smells. He smelled the smells of matted wet fur, charred wood, dusty velvet, rotting orchids, sour milk, sulfur, oil, grease, chalk dust, rancid butter, and human scalps. Whatever that
What the
smells
fuck?
like.
How can you identify all those smells at the same moment?
He has 100 years. I don't know. There's actually a couple of points where he describes things in incredible detail.
Well, maybe they gave the one guy a giant dick. Maybe they gave this guy a giant fucking brain.
Perfect memory.
Maybe he doesn't mention the fact that his brain is so fucking big because he can't see it because there's no mirrors.
Oh,
Maybe he has like a giant alien, like an
he doesn't
egghead,
even know.
and he's just like, everyone doesn't like him, and he thinks it's because he's always like being an intellectual, but they're just terrified that he's gonna drop his head.
He's a mega
on
mind
them.
type motherfucker.
Because he didn't give him the neck strength. That's why this character's never doing anything. He's just watching things.
It's all loose necked and shit.
He's just like, sulfur and stardust and copper and zinc.
So he doesn't even run from this thing. It describes it as, I heard myself scream. And then it's one of those things where you react before it even happens.
Yeah.
And then he scurries across the floor. He describes himself as scurrying like a cockroach across like this metal floor.
All fours?
Yeah, because it's dark. It's pitch black.
Oh.
So he doesn't know like what this thing is or where it's coming from, so he just runs away and hides. And while he's running away, he hears all the others laughing. But when he gets back, they try to like explain that it was like a nervous reaction or something like that. Oh. And this is where he goes, no, like I know they all hate me because he's the youngest of all of them. Oh. Right? And they're all kept at that same age. So he remains the youngest of all of them forever. And he also like claims that he's the one the least affected by the computer.
Right.
Which may be true, but you also don't really get enough context for like what the computer's done to them.
He has no idea. It's like that's like that card game with the card on your forehead, and it's just like he's got like a tattoo on there or something. That's why people hate him.
Just says shit cunt. just like super obvious. Maybe he's got like teardrop tattoos.
Yes.
He's just mangled.
Or it's just like, it's like very specific. It's like, I hate women. I hate ape creatures. I hate like, it's
Nimdok can suck my dick.
And then like it keeps changing. Like the lights turn off and suddenly he's got a new tattoo, and it's like also Nimdok will lose his eyes, and they're like, oh shit, how'd you not know about that?
And he's got a glow in the dark tattoo, so when the lights go out, you can still see
like
it.
Eyes.
Yeah. Oh my god. So after this, he starts to describe some of the things that happened to the people. So apparently Benny was like a professor, like a handsome, intelligent, affluent professor. And Gorrister was like a forethinker. He was someone who would like object things that weren't right. Like he was a protester, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And AM turned all these people into these shells of what they were. Like Benny, he drives mad and makes him an idiot because he used to be a professor and he used to have everything.
Right.
Gorrister, he turns into a shoulder shrugger. He makes him like not care about anything. He generates apathy in someone who once cared about everything.
Right.
And apparently Nimdok just disappears out of nowhere and then just reappears later. And just looks like drained and shaken and pale. So sometimes he doesn't even know what the machine has done to these people.
Right.
Like some things are obvious, some things are in front of everyone, but other things are just sort of done, you know, in those little moments when, you know, there's no accountability. There's like no recordings of anything other than what the machine gives them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of crazy, but he actually, even though he says he's the least affected, he talks about how nothing's ever happened to Ellen.
Oh, he keeps getting slapped and kicked.
Yeah, he keeps calling Ellen a dirty bitch and a slut. He like really doesn't like her.
The narrator calls her that?
Yeah, he's like, he calls her scum filth at one point. Yeah, he really doesn't like Ellen. And I actually found out in the last page of the book, it describes Ellen for the first time ever.
Really?
The only thing it says before that is that she's not fat, because you hear like the laughing of a fat woman. And he goes, well, couldn't have been Ellen because she's not fat. Right. And I've never heard her laugh in 100 years.
I love how there's no PC culture when there's 5 people who have survived for 109 years.
Exactly, yeah.
They're like, you shit cunt scumbag, you're not fat.
Yeah, because he describes her in the last page, and he says her ebony features. And I went, oh, Ellen's black? Like, I don't know. They didn't give me any context. He describes her as being a domino in chalk dust because she has white eyes, she's black, and they're in snow when it happens.
A domino
in chalk dust.
In chalk dust. I'm trying to imagine that. What the fuck?
Well, you work with like flour and shit. A domino and flour works. Similar.
Sure.
It's just that contrast, that like white on black on white.
Right.
Really brings it out, makes it pop. So then I guess I don't even know what really happens from there. They go back to the conversation, and then all of a sudden, a fucking hurricane just swells itself up.
Okay.
Yeah, well, because the AM can control everything that goes on down there, so sometimes an earthquake will just hit them, just like out of nowhere.
Oh, so he's sending this
hurricane.
Yes,
he sent this.
What the fuck?
So this hurricane comes along, sweeps up Ellen, and takes her away.
What the fuck?
Like, so much wind that it's actually keeping her aloft and moving her down this tunnel.
Like a domino in the wind.
Yeah. And then all the other ones grab onto things. They're all like holding on to one object or another until eventually the wind sweeps them away too.
Okay.
So they're following along like miles behind her, but they're all like being buffeted by the wind and kept up. And he even talks about how he gets like knocked unconscious during this flight. So he has no idea how far they went, how long they were up there for. He says it could have been years.
What?
You have no idea because they went hundreds of miles, right? So, like, how long does it take wind to go hundreds of miles? Could have taken them weeks. Yeah. Jeez. And they don't really have a context for that. Yeah, so they just... and then they just arrive at the other place, and then they're just like, okay, the wind stopped, it dropped us, now we'll just keep walking. You know, they don't have any other choices. It's not like they're going to, like, regroup and go back to their homes. They just
This is a crazy story.
I know. And there's some things that I find doesn't make sense. Like, he said it could have been weeks. But at the start, he said that the computer always keeps them up to date on the date.
So does it talk to them?
Not directly. It doesn't have any sort of a voice specifically.
Okay.
But it does talk to them, yeah. Yeah. It makes like it makes certain sounds, and sometimes it will like put words in their heads and things like that.
Ooh.
But it talks to them in really cryptic ways. It doesn't have like, it would be nice if it just had a PA system.
Yeah.
Right? Just an announcement system.
It would have every language.
It is Thursday, September 9th, 2194. Today is a hurricane day. You're all unconscious, but I'm going to make the announcements anyways. You know, I could do that. There could just be speaker system. I mean, if they can do it in a public school, they can do it in a computer.
Yeah.
So speaking of AM speaking, this is the one time when he actually speaks. So it says, AM said very politely in a pillar of stainless steel bearing neon lettering. This is in his brain that he sees this. So you know how some people like really like to exaggerate in sort of casual ways? They'll go like, oh, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. Or like, oh, I walked like 2 million miles.
Hyperbole.
Exactly, a hyperbole. This is probably the hyperbole to end all hyperbole. So he says, hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. There are 387.44 million miles of printed circuits in wafer-thin layers that fill my complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal 1/1 billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro instant.
Fuck.
So I did some math. And so...
Of course you did.
First of all, that's... all those millions of miles... That's 15,000 times the circumference of the Earth.
Oh.
That 387.44 million miles.
So it's like layers?
Well, it's because imagine a computer. Your computer, your laptop sitting right here,
yeah,
has miles of circuits in it.
Right.
So obviously that, you know, they would never be laid end to end like that. But I then thought, okay, what if instead of being written, so you know what a nanoangstrom is?
No.
So an angstrom is 1 times 10 to the negative 10 meters. So it's 0.0, like 9 zeros and then a 1. That's how many meters an angstrom is. It's a tiny number.
Okay.
And then anything that's a nano is 1/1 billionth of that. So it's 1/1 billionth of 1/1 billionth of a meter. And then he says it would only be 1/1 billionth of the hate. So when you stack all of this up, imagine instead of being written on each little wafer, it was written on a piece of paper, hate. And then it was stacked on top of each other.
Right.
There would be so many pieces of paper, you would be able to go to the moon and back 1.6 octillion times. I knew that was not going to be a number that like anyone could wrap their head around. So a better one is if that same stack of paper was stretched all the way out, it would be so long, it would go across the diameter of the universe 703 million times. It's 65.5 quintillion light years worth of paper.
Oh,
that's how much he hates them.
What a ridiculous individual.
Hates them like you wouldn't believe.
What is he doing then? What's he got people for?
Well, this is actually where like he gets some explanation here. And I don't think it's given to him by the machine, but he realizes it after the machine says that. And he realizes that the AM has sentience. He's this creature who has thought. And like I said, probably thinks faster than we do.
Way
so every
faster,
second
probably.
is 1,000 seconds to him or more, millions even. But he has nowhere to go. He can't really build anything. He can't really move anywhere. He's stuck just like they are.
Right.
So when he killed all of these people, and they even talk about different phases of AM's life. Like there's one phase where he was like completely maniacal and just did all these things that didn't even make sense. He just did them because he felt like it, I guess. Then there was a phase they referred to as the festival, in which all of them got like that's when Benny was turned into an ape, and that's when like all of them were scarred and yeah.
Right.
So there's all these different phases of his life, but ultimately he killed the humans in one of the earliest phases.
Oh.
Because they've been around for 109 years, right? So you imagine probably about 110 years ago AM was made. It's never said, but that's what I assume.
Right.
So he brought them down there so that he could remember how to hate people.
Oh.
He brought them down there so that he could remain proficient at hating people.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's why the 5 of them are just, they're there forever. And he even says, he was the earth, and we were the fruit of that earth. And we were, and though he had eaten us, we would never digest.
Fuck.
Yeah. And he even talks about being in the belly of AM. And it's cool
Wow.
because this thing really is a creature. It's just not a creature we understand.
Yeah.
At all. So they're immortal, but this is where he realizes we're only immortal to time. We're not physically immortal.
Right.
Necessarily.
Yeah, we can still die.
Yeah, so that sort of plants that seed in his brain. And he gets a little context here. He gets context of like what AM is, what we are, and that's rare because, I mean, this is 109 years into his journey, so it took him a while to figure that out. Fortunately, it only took me 9 or 10 pages. So
I would probably like in like the second week be like, well,
why are we here?
yeah. I
What's
wonder if I
going
can
on,
die.
bud? Yeah. Yeah, it'd be the first attempt. Yeah. Wouldn't take me 100 years.
Yeah.
So they keep traveling because they were originally going in like the direction they were heading, and then the wind carried them that way. So they end up directly underneath the North Pole, and there is a massive winged creature.
How do they know this? Does he tell them that?
It doesn't explicitly say.
You have arrived at the
Yeah,
North Pole.
he probably told them because I'm pretty sure it's way colder there.
Mm.
And so there's this massive bird, and it's a Norse mythology bird. It's like a carrion bird.
Whoa.
So it's just sleeping, but they realized that the bird was what created the hurricane. It was the flapping of the bird's wings that generated the wind to suck them down the tunnel.
Holy shit.
He even calls it a Huracan incarnate, because Huracan is the Mayan god of wind and storm.
What the fuck?
Yeah, so AM built this creature. He made this thing to fuck with them.
Holy shit.
And then he says, here's your food. If you want to eat eat this bird.
What the fuck?
And this is another biblical
So
allusion.
is it organic?
Yeah, it's got meat on it.
Where did he make the meat?
We can grow burgers in a lab now, man.
That's true.
Give a computer, a supercomputer, there's sentience, 100 years, he'll make whatever the fuck you want.
So he actually made, like, he could make people.
Probably.
He could make a whole fucking universe of things, but he chooses to make a fucking bird to fuck with only 5 people.
5 people.
This is fucked. This is such a fucked story.
So a burning bush comes to them.
Of course the burning bush
And
comes to them.
speaks to them and tells them that if they want to eat, they can eat the bird. And then one of them says, give us weapons. And the bush disappears, and there's 2 sets of bows and arrows and a water pistol. So they pick up the bows, and they're useless. Just all of it's useless. And so they just have to walk away. Even though there's like all this meat they could get, it's just not worth fighting this like giant terror bird. Even though it'd be an easy way out. If a massive ass bird just snapped you in half, it's like, okay, well, I'm done. I'm dead.
Yeah.
No coming back from that.
Who knows? Maybe the water pistol had like a sulfuric acid in it.
Still wouldn't help.
No.
It wouldn't fucking help at all. Not against like a 100-foot bird. Fuck no. Jesus Christ. Even a bird your size, it wouldn't help at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they choose to leave it, and this is where they hear the fat woman laughing at them. And they never really describe what the fat woman is. They just that's something that they hear every now and again. And so it's like it's mocking them. It's got something to do with the computer. And they get hit by an earthquake when they simultaneously are nailed to the floor.
What?
Nails through their feet are used to plant them in place, and then an earthquake hits them, and 2 of them fall into the hole like that the earthquake creates when it rips the ground open.
Holy fuck.
Yeah, and those people are then returned to them. This is where the people are returned by like a heavenly chorus of angels.
What?
Yeah, but the song Go Down Moses, and like angels descend. I'm pretty sure the angels descend and then the bodies are just dropped.
Oh.
And when the bodies come back to them, they're basically fine, but Ellen's limping. That's like the only thing that's changed. They're perfectly fine, but they've just, you can tell they fell down a hole.
So what does this thing have, like an infinite amount of power, or did it like drag them up through a duct, like, and then toss them down? Or does it have like teleportation power?
No, it's probably more like the duct thing. It's probably just like, it takes them from here and it like knocks them out and moves them over to this other place and then like drops them.
This is fucked.
Like I don't imagine it has any sort of like what we would consider to be like extraordinary powers.
Right.
But I just imagine it has all of the resources it wants at its disposal. So that's what makes it so, efficient.
Yeah.
And that's it. They just start moving. They're just like, okay, now we'll continue.
Well, at this point, so many things happen. Like, there's no reason to even talk about it. You're
Exactly.
Like, well.
Exactly. Well, and he even mentions, he's like, there was often fainting and we would have to wait.
Oh.
They would just faint because they haven't eaten.
Yeah.
And then they would just wait for the guy to wake up. He'd wake up and they'd keep going. How fucking crazy is that existence?
This is a good story, Alan.
Yeah, especially because you get to the end of the day and you're like, God damn it, Nimdok has fainted 6 fucking times. Can't we just carry the bastard? Like, it's not worth waiting every single time. Every time he goes down. So they walk until they find, finally, the canned food that they were promised all along.
Really?
Yeah, so they find the canned food in this ice cave. And this is an ice cave that has like icicles all over the roof, and it's clear that it's sort of been formed quickly. It's not like this is just a place where ice exists.
Right.
Like AM made the ice to turn it into a cave.
Okay.
So they find the canned food, but they were never given anything to open it. Obviously. So
they use Benny's giant schlong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So they just wrap it around the can and just wrench it off.
I mean, it is a hammer after all.
Pretty much. So Benny actually is the one who tries to open it. He starts smashing it on the ice, and that's not working at all because ice is way too soft for the can. Nobody thought to bring it back to a place that had some steel and open them there. No one thought of this.
Well, they're probably too afraid to have their fingers burned off.
So Benny then tries to eat Gorrister's face. So that
was a huge leap.
Well, because he's hungry.
Kind of like the leap he took
at the beginning.
Ceiling.
Yeah, to get to the girder. So he jumps on Gorrister and like wraps himself around him and is like trying to bite pieces off of him. And the narrator realizes that like the computer's not going to stop him. The computer's just going to let it happen. The other guy's going to live, and it's just going to be one of those fucked up things that happens. But when Gorster's screaming because he's being eaten, all the icicles start to fall from the roof and they land in these snowdrifts.
Oh.
So the narrator all of a sudden realizes, like, this is a unique opportunity. And he says, all of this happens in an instant. All of these things. So he grabs one of the ice spears, rams it into Benny from behind, like runs at him, bracing the ice spear.
This is like a two-handed thing? Is that big?
Yeah, they're huge. They're icicles from like the ceiling. They're spears. That's how they're described.
Shit.
And stabs him right in the back and stabs it up underneath his rib cage and breaks the icicle off inside of him.
Whoa.
And then grabs another one and shoves it down through Gorster's neck. So both of them died just like that.
Whoa.
And I guess Ellen at the same time realizes what's going on. So she grabs one and shoves it down Nimdok's throat. Like just...
What the fuck is happening here? Why is
all three of them are done for. So...
Now I have the only woman!
Well, the narrator even says that he could hear the breath of AM being drawn in. Like, he could hear that subtle change in the background.
Oh.
And he could tell that AM was trying to react. So he takes a spear and stabs Ellen with it. And Ellen dies too. So the narrator becomes the only one who's left.
Oh, fuck.
And he says AM sent locusts, melted all the ice. He did all these things. Like, he tried to do anything, but it was too late. He'd already killed them all. Nothing brought them back. And then he says, so the narrator was then sort of turned into this creature because AM didn't want him doing the same thing. He didn't want, that was my foot.
Oh.
He didn't want the narrator also taking himself out, right? So he doesn't want him to run into anything or try to cut his neck on something. So the narrator says, okay, I'll describe myself as I see myself. It's like, I am a smooth, rounded creature with gray smoke where my eyes used to be.
What the fuck?
And he says he has basically no function at all in his arms or legs. He's like a doughy creature. And it even says, I leave a moist trail when I move.
Oh my god, he's like a slug.
He's like Jabba the Hutt, kind of.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and he even says that he like barely resembles a human at this point. And he talks about how, like, even though he knew it was the right thing to do, killing the others, it's still something that, like, haunts him.
Right.
Because AM specifically hasn't done anything to his mind. He's left his mind intact, but he's fucked up his body.
Fuck.
And then he says he can see all these things because there's reflective surfaces down there, like metals and glass, and I guess. And then after describing himself, he says, I have no mouth, and I must scream. And that's it.
That's a crazy story.
Yeah, it's a fucking crazy story.
That would be a very good made-for-TV movie.
Made-for-TV movie. Maybe a 6-part miniseries.
Yeah. Yeah, that too. I don't know how much content there would be in there, but I imagine a lot of that was a little more drawn out than your summarization of it. How many pages is this?
It's a 10-page story.
Oh, that might be tough to make into a full-fledged movie.
Yeah, it is a little shallow, but also in the story they do things where the earthquake that, like, they fell down the hole and all that stuff, that was described in 3 lines.
Oh.
Whereas in a movie that would be like a 10-15 minute scene, right?
Yeah, you can make it a whole scene. Yeah.
I think the only thing you'd have to avoid if you did something like this is you don't want to put too many things in. You don't want to have like 9 or 10 episodes in the middle where nothing really happens and they just keep getting fucked with, because then you lose the point. Like, the worst thing you can ever do is try to make 3 seasons out of a 1-season show or a half-season show.
Yeah, I think this would be good if you made it just as long as, like, you just ignored convention of time as far as movies go. Like, if you just made this, if you're like, it's only going to fit into a 50-minute thing, fine, and then just make it.
Yeah, make a 50-minute movie.
I think that would be great. I think it would be, maybe you could just call it like, I don't know, a short video.
Short movie.
Short movie, yeah.
No one's ever done that before.
Short film. What the fuck am I talking about?
Short
Those are already
film.
things.
Yeah, I guess 50-minute short films exist.
Probably.
I imagine so. They're like borderline films at that point, though.
I'm sure some Canadian can do it.
Some Canadian. If you're a Canadian, reach out to us. We will make this movie.
Don't reach out to us.
No? You don't want comments? Like, I'll make your movie?
Oh, I would love, yes, comments. I meant like directly to us, where they're like, hey, can you help us make a movie? Because I don't know how to make a movie.
Oh, I just don't know anything about making a movie. I don't even know anything about adapting a story to a movie.
No, me either.
We just like talking bullshit and like stories.
I don't like writing or reading.
See, we like watching movies. That's why we want to. That's why we're like, make it a movie, because then I'll watch it.
Yeah.
But I think this story was really cool because it explored things that most stories don't. It explored like, how do people behave when they're put in a situation like this? And like, how does the human mind react when you have no future?
Yeah. Well, does this story does it start at 109 years and then this takes place over a very short period of time?
Well, it starts, at 109 years into their enslavement, and then it probably progresses for about a year or two.
Okay. Probably.
That's like a very rough estimation because they do a lot of like blacking out and like, we lose time here, and I couldn't. One time, like when he runs away from that large invisible creature, he doesn't know how long he's gone for, and he doesn't bother to ask because he doesn't want to know.
Oh.
So he could have been gone for days, he could have been gone for hours, could have been weeks.
That's really fucked up.
Because you have no time sense when you're in a computer. There's no sun going around. Yeah, so it's kind of neat that there's this thing that it started off as a computer, but then it became a planet.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah, okay, right.
It started off as what we'd imagine a supercomputer to be, like a building that has a large room in it, which has like a huge computer and it does things. And then once it gained sentience, it realized, like, why am I confined to this building? It's all this space around me. And then it started to build into that space. And next thing you know, it covers the entirety of the Earth.
That's crazy.
With 15,000 times the circumference of the Earth in circuits.
Yeah.
So imagine how powerful this processing machine must be. However, a computer that large is incredibly inefficient. You know how long it would take for an electrical signal to get from one pole to the other?
Yeah, that would be crazy.
It would take forever. But if this computer's smart, it would have CPUs everywhere, right? It would almost have the ability to move its consciousness from one main hub to another. So that way...
That may be what he was referring to as the breath or the sound of the machine. That could be all the CPUs like firing up all around him, like all the fans and shit.
Yeah, it could be AM trying to bring himself there so that he could have an effect in that area.
Yeah.
Because imagine, like, if you're breaking up the whole world into like manageable digital sectors, they're not going to be very big because electricity only travels so fast through a wire. That's why when you build a computer, you want to put your central processing unit with a cache right on it.
Oh.
And that little cache is there because going to the memory bank to get information wastes time. It takes longer for information to go the like 3 inches from your CPU to your memory bank than it does for your computer's processing unit to process one step, right? So in the same way, if he was slicing up the world, he would probably have millions of sectors. So if he was in sector 14869, he'd be like, shit, I have to go to 14867.
Right.
And that would have taken him a while to like switch all that digital information. Yeah. And that's probably the only reason they had that opportunity to actually end it.
Because he created too much to handle.
If he had put them in a tiny room, it would have been no problem. But he wanted to make this grand narrative where he gives them the illusion of freedom and the illusion of choice, but neither ultimately.
That's really fucked up. This was really good. I really enjoyed this. I had no idea what this was about other than like the basic plot. I think this is the first one. Yeah, this is the first A discussion where I had no idea of any of the plot elements.
Where it was going?
Other than just the basics that you mentioned on Mercenaries, but other than that, this is awesome.
Yeah, I really like how fucked up this book is because it makes you think about all the things Sam Harris talks about.
Right.
You know, you really get to see, like, this is a potential terminal point for the human race.
Yeah.
And he even says, when he's talking about how AM was created but couldn't do anything, he said, like all machines that harbor hatred for the soft, weak creatures that create them.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's what it's like. It's we're currently in the world of humans, but one day we could be in the world of computers.
Wow.
Right? We just happen to be on this side of the line. Oh.
Well, that's a good spot to.
Yeah. With that, I
yeah.
hope everyone enjoyed. I hope no one's like going home and smashing their computer just to make sure it doesn't take over their home.
Wait a minute! I had to use a computer to watch this.
Oh God!
And record this.
Turn it off. Turn it off. Oh.
Well, enjoy your day, your week, your month, your year, or your 109 years.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye.